Shalom. Before I begin this video, first and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Racha Kodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that continually roll very well to this very day. That's continually feeding the flock through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Shalom to the whole elect that's still continually plowing in his work, giving diligence to make your calling and election sure in faith, true sincerity, and also in all charity. Shalom. Now, topic of this video is going to be entitled, "This is why we call you the devil," in which, the spirit is on the men of the Lord, who are the true Hebrew Israelites, according to the Bible, according to prophecy, which consists primarily of the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, in which this video is basically directed towards the Edomites, or Esau, which they call themselves today as the modern day so-called white man. All right, the so-called modern day Caucasian. And in addition to the influx of videos coming out on why we call this man the devil, in which he is, in which that word devil means deceiver or slanderer, goes back to the Greek word diablo, is because one of the reasons in which I'm going to bring out in this video is because there is a piece of history which is never really talked about or not really mentioned that much, is the removal of a people from their original land, which they are deemed today as the so-called Native American Indians. And what happened was that through the enactment of a certain law or an act, which was signed by or actually published and signed by Andrew Jackson, was called the Indian Removal Act. I believe it was the Indian Removal Act of 1830. I have to check back on the date, which I actually got that piece of information with me right now. But you have the Indian Removal Act, which was put in place, in which that was set in place to get to remove the so-called Native American Indians out of their homeland, in which they were here, they were settled here. And once Esau or Edom came over, Esau pretty much pushed the so-called Native American Indians, which they are also the tribes of Israel, all right, Gad and Reuben, also the Latino tribes that were here, all right, they were known as Taino Indians, and others were part of the so-called Latino tribes. They were pushed out of this land by Edom, all right. They were pushed into reservations, and they were pushed into the southern part of America. And they can't even get back into this land without going through, without being what they call legal. They call them immigrants, man. In which, really, man, Edom is actually the original immigrant, man. He came over here, all right, in which this wasn't his land. He took this land by rape, rob, and murder. All right. He murdered in cold blood the tribes that were here in Americas before he was here, and they have the nerve to say that this land belonged to them, in which it really doesn't. All right. If you really go into the history, how America was first formed, to the beginnings of America, this place was founded on bloodshed. It was founded on lies and robberies, in which that's also in the scripture. All right. The scriptures deem America as the bloody city. And the reason why it's deemed the bloody city is because this place was founded on blood. All right. Because back before Edom claimed this land as their own, which is once again by robbery and murder, this place was flourishing. It was a peaceful land, which that's why the tribes that were here, they had respect of the land. They respected that, and that's why they were known as nomadic tribes. because a nomadic tribe is pretty much a tribe that's doesn't stay in one place for a permanent fixed amount of time, or should I say a permanent amount of time. All right, they will stay there for a little while, right, and they will move on to the next land, and that lets you know that they were part of the nation of Israel, because Israel kept the law of the land Sabbath. All right, you would till the land for 6 years, and then on the 7th year you would let it rest. So that's why the tribes have respected the land, and they wouldn't stay there for so long, and they'll move on to the next land, because they understood that the land needed rest. All right, that's also that's what one of the facts that we bring up when we speak about the so-called Native American Indians and the Latino tribes being a part of our nation. All right, but not to get too far off the topic, this is one of the acts that were put in place, or one of the events that took place that goes to show you that these Edomites are the devil that the Bible speaks of. All right, because you had to be a monster, and you had to be I don't know how I must have put it, man. What's worse than a monster? What's worse than a monster, and what's worse than what's the worstest word that you can think of, man? That's what these Edomites are. All right, because they single-handedly downtrodden and corrupted this whole entire planet Earth by their acts, and this is one of them. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and go to the where I actually have it here. Now this is the get that out of the way. This is the Indian Removal Act of 1830. So I had the year right. Right, so it's the Indian Removal Act of 1830, signed and dated by Andrew Jackson, who was also an Edomite devil. All right, signed into law in 1830 by President Andrew Jackson, the Indian Removal Act provided for the general resettlement of Native Americans from east of the Mississippi River to lands west Indian Territory, right? And through a process of time, the so-called Native American Indians were displaced from their original lands, from all parts of America. All right. Now, this act that you see right here was actually what's known today as the Trail of Tears. The reason, and when you deem a historical event called a Trail of Tears, then you know that the ones who was responsible for this has to be wicked as all hell. All right, because they scream out the importance of humanity, right? That's their rallying cry, right, to sustain humanity. But here it is, they're anti, man. They're anti-life. They're against life in general, in the ecosystem, in the way the cycle of life is supposed to go. They're against all that, man. All right, so when they speak about humanity, man, they're lying through their teeth. All right, because when they speak about humanity, they're speaking about themselves. All right, in which they're not even human. All right, they're subhuman. Okay. It says, although the removal was supposed to be voluntary, right? Which that's a lie. Which once again, that's why we call him the devil. All right. It says removal became mandatory whenever the government thought necessary. Thousands of Indian people, including nearly the entire Indian population that had existed in the southeastern United States, were moved west. The first removal treaty to follow the passage of the Indian Removal Act was with the Choctaw Nation. In 1838, the Cherokee Nation was removed to reservations and what has been called a Trail of Tears, right? And that's why you got the Gadites and Reubenites in reservations today. All right, you got the northern tribes, which are the so-called Native American Indians, in the reservations today, and they've been stuck in the reservations ever since then. They never got out of that situation. All right. Oh, and guess what? They were promised 40 acres and a mule. Were they given 40 acres and a mule? No, they weren't. They weren't given anything. The only thing they were given were a mandatory removal of their original land, and to be put in a messed up state to the way they can't even get themselves out of, because these devils had put them in that state. These devils had put them in this condition. All right. Now it says, Slaggy, I lost my place for a second. Right, so I'm at the Trail of Tears, right? It says, it is estimated that almost 8,000 Cherokee people died on the forced march or shortly thereafter. Right, man, because and actually this was during the winter. All right. You know, I don't think it says it in this article here, but actually that the whole that the time where they were traveling, you know, being removed from their lands, it was actually during the winter. And you had the Gadites, you know, the so-called Native American Indian tribes that are part of the nation of Israel. They died during that trip. All right, because it was during the winter, man. You had a big chunk of them die because of that, man. Why? Because these devils had it to where they had to leave off that land and go and travel, man. Go somewhere else, go to farther west and leave off that land because they were forcibly removed from that land. All right. So again, Salakia, it says that the removal period also saw the massive movement of missionaries stationing themselves west of the Mississippi, with the expectation of the Indians' demise as a people, in which, wow. It says, I'm gonna read that again. It says, with the expectation of the Indians' demise as a people, right? Because they really wanted the so-called Native American Indian tribes to be destroyed as a people. All right. That's in the mind state of these devils. Even to this very day, they want the tribes to be completely destroyed. All right. And it says, missionaries made a great effort to civilize, right, quote unquote, civilize and Christianize Native Americans. Tribes and nations must perish and live only as men. All right. And this was attested to Beckerford with 1967. All right. Now it says the removal concept was further refined after the mid-century when it became evident that U.S. expansion planned to claim the West as well as the East. U.S. government officials concluded unspecified tracts of Indian territory needed to be more sharply defined into reservations, right? Because once again, like I mentioned before, they basically at the end of the ordeal, they took over the East and the West and placed the so-called Native American Indians in reservations, of which they're still there to this very day. All right, it says those opposing westward expansion were rounded up and forcibly confined to the reservations. This instigated the Great Plains Wars of the 1860s to the 1880s. And once again, this is one of the facts that's notated in history of showing you that this man is a complete devil. He is the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. There's no doubt about it. All right, so whenever people ask, you know, these Edomites ask why we call him the devil. This is one of the main reasons why we call him the devil, out of many things. All right, we did a live stream yesterday concerning the enslavement of the southern tribes of the nation of Israel, which is the so-called Negroes, Haitians, and you got the Jamaicans, Trinidadians. All right, you had the enslavement of the southern tribes of the nation of Israel during the time of slavery, in which also you had a bulk, and not only just a bulk, but you also had the so-called Native American Indians and the so-called Latino tribes that were also taken into slavery during the time of, or during the era when you had Cristobal Colon that made his journey over here. All right. And that was in the mind of these devils in the first place was to take over these so-called Native American Indian tribes and to use them for enslavement and to put them in captivity. All right. So that's where you had the first, or should I say, the first movement of slavery right there. All right. So with that, I want to go ahead and jump into the precepts. Now, I quoted a scripture earlier, right? The book of Nahum, the 3rd chapter, and the 1st verse. It's like it. That's Habakkuk. It's like it. Nahum, the 3rd chapter, and the 1st verse says, "Woe to the bloody city! It is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not." Right, and this is known as the bloody city, and that's one of those recent events in history showing you that, man. All right, because when it came to the weaponry of these Edomites, the so-called Native American Indians didn't even stand a chance, because that was during the creation of the Gatling gun. All right, because it was a time to where during that war that they were fighting, Gad was messing them up, man. Gad was messing them up with guerrilla warfare, and they couldn't fight back. So guess what? They came up with an invention called a Gatling gun and mowed them down. All right, and that's the history that the so-called white man will not tell you, man. Okay, it's that shameful spewing that now is on its glory, man. Because his track record and his history shows you what manner of person he really is, man. All right. See, and especially when our people, when they hear stuff about this, it irks them. It pretty much gets under their skin, because they love master, man. They love the slave master. They love the Esau, these Edomites. All right. So when we talk about the slave master, they feel some type of way about it. But guess what, man? It's not going to stop us from bringing out this truth, man. All right. Now, going from there, I want to grab another precept. I know it's in the book of Habakkuk, right? The 2nd chapter. And I'm going to start at 16 verses. "Thou art filled with shame for glory." Right. It says, "And let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory." Right. And this enactment is a form of that shameful spewing being put on his glory. All right. The Indian Removal Act of 1830. All right. That's a part of that shameful spewing that's on his glory. So among other things that we're bringing out concerning this so-called white man, which is true biblical nationality, once again, is Edom or Esau. All right. And we're going to continue to bring out his nationality, because he's not he's not white. All right. Even though he calls himself white, he's not really white, man. He's red. Okay. Now, going on from there, and really this was prophesied, man. All right. This is the book of Genesis, the 49th chapter, and I'm starting to get to the point. This is the 19th verse, and this is talking about Gad, right? This is the so-called Native American Indian tribe, okay? Especially with Reuben. Reuben is the Seminole, all right, or the Seminole Indians, okay? Now, verse 19, it says, "Gad, a troop shall overcome him," right? And they were overcome by a troop, all right? Which that troop came by way of these Edomites when they came over here, and they took them down, okay? "But he shall overcome at the last," right? Because the Lord's going to raise up not only us, the Israelites, right? Or should I say the southern kingdom, but he's also going to raise up the northern kingdom tribes, okay? Which including the ones that included in as Gad. All right. So with that, I want to go to another precept. I want to get the book of Ezekiel, the 35th chapter. Salakia. Right, Ezekiel, the 35th chapter and the 5th verse. It says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end, right? Because there was a time to where our iniquity had a cutoff point. All right. Because, and that was actually during the time of slavery, man. You know, we had our time to serve, and then it was supposed to have a cutoff point. But guess what? This so-called white man furthered the affliction. Okay. Verse 6 says, therefore, as I live, saith the Lord power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee, right? Because not only did you have the blood that was shed during the time of slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, but even before the transatlantic slave trade took place, you had the Gadites and the Reubenites and the so-called Latino tribes that were being completely destroyed as a people, and their blood was shed also on this land. Like I read earlier in the book of Nahum, the 3rd chapter and the 1st verse, this is a bloody city. So guess what? The Lord said, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Right? Because blood is on the heels of these Edomites. They can't escape. All right? See, if thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Right? And blood is right behind these Edomites. They, like I mentioned before, they can't escape it. They can't run away from their history. This is what has proven that these Edomites are complete devils. All right. So whenever they say that they haven't done anything wrong, or that they're looked at as innocent, or they didn't, they basically making up excuses. This is one of the facts that we bring out to show you that this is the devil that the Bible speaks of. All right. The Indian Removal Act. I started to bring out Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's another proof of history that shows you that this man is a devil. All right. The Devil's Punch Bowl. That's another one. Among other things, man. And the list goes on, man. If we ever were to sit down and go into the full history behind Esau, these Edomites, and how they operated throughout the society and throughout the course of history, man, this video will be a long, drawn-out video which will last for days. All right. But for now, I'm going to just leave it off on this piece of information here. This is just an excerpt on the Indian Removal Act, which it goes a lot more into what's being read here. But I'm going to leave it off on here just to show you that, once again, this is why we call Esau, Edom, the devil. Okay. So once again, I hope this was edifying to the body of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, the members of the Hopefully Elect. Until next time, once again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that continually rule very well